What is that incessant alert?
That's what I'm checking right now.
You got 18 in a row, so what do you think it is? I'm excited.
It's boring.
What is it?
It's the Connecticut Freedom Fighters group chat.
Oh, okay. So you got an audible alert?
Yeah. I should mute it because it's a lot of messages.
Oh, I'm sure.
Some of them are good. I get good stuff from there sometimes.
All right. I get no problem. Alice, interesting show we had last night, right?
It was fun.
A wilder one later on. A lot of banged up people left the house today, Alice, I must say. Nobody by name, though. But it was great to have folks over. There we go.
Yeah,
right
it
as
was
we
nice.
do.
You got to see your frenzies.
Right as we do our slide right back into our good health, of course, thanks to our friends at a certain group, which we'll be able to name in just days. So I don't really need to dwell on Karine Jean-Pierre, but it's not great. And the White House strategy for this, they're hiding Biden's doctor now, and nobody is smart enough in the White House to come up with an excuse why that makes any sense. So now there's beginning to be a clamor, like there should be, because why can't the press talk to the White House doctor? Why can't they talk to the White House doctor? And we're not getting a reason why. And it's just odd.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN chief medical correspondent. The statistics are very much on his side because of his.
Sorry, I'm gonna start this thread right here. Okay.
In an effort to try to really firmly establish the history of what has happened here in the last week, are you in a position to explain what the testing regimen was for the president prior to his COVID diagnosis?
So this is Stephen Portnoy of CBS asking Ashish Jha, because right now they're doing all the press conferences tag team.
Right.
It's Ashish Jha, who's acting as the president's physician for some reason, even though he's a COVID task force honcho. He shouldn't really be there.
Right,
because
it makes no sense.
People aren't asking COVID questions. They're asking Biden questions. So, but since they're taking this guy out, and Ashish Jha has decided to spend, and Karine Jean-Pierre, to spend the last few days telling people that, yes, indeed, they are hearing from the White House doctor because he keeps writing a note. A lot of these reporters have had enough. So now this Stephen Portnoy is asking Jha a specific medication Biden question, which is a smart thing to do. So if he wants to play the part of the president's doctor, who he's not,
right?
Because they won't.
If you're going to tell us it's fine that we can't talk to him because he sent the note, then maybe you'll be able to answer these questions for us.
Absolutely.
In an effort to try to really firmly establish the history of what has happened here in the last week, are you in a position to explain what the testing regimen was for the president prior to his COVID diagnosis?
What I will say, and what I know is, and again, Karine, you may have more on this, is that there was a regular cadence. As you might imagine, the president travels. The president has different days where he's interacting with different numbers of people. So all of that goes into the regular cadence. The president got tested on a regular basis, but there was not a single cadence that was.
By the way, I love this. He asks him a doctor question. Mm-hmm. Jha, who's not the president's doctor, who hasn't been treating him, who doesn't treat him, who has never treated him, says, well, he's been on a regular... Well, Karine, unless you'd like to take part of this. Wait a second. So Karine's going to answer the president's doctor question?
Right.
Is that what's going to happen?
Of course, Karine doesn't want to take it either.
No, well, if you saw any of this today, it was fantastic. The times they both back away from the podium, and then they look at each other, and she tells him, go, you go.
It's true every week. It varied based on a lot of other factors as well, based on what was happening with his travel schedule.
So that's a non-answer to a question. But the Portnoy keeps up.
One of the questions that's been asked, and we'll have to raise it again, is why the president's personal physician is not here. Are you familiar with a reason that the president decided not to send his physician here to answer our questions the way that his predecessors have decided to send their physicians here?
KJP, I don't know if you want to start it. I'm happy to give my thoughts. So you want me to just give mine?
Why don't you start and I'll come in.
Yeah. So, look.
you shouldn't need two of you. The question is, where's the president's doctor? The president is having a medical situation now. We need the doctor. Why can't we talk to the doctor? KGB, would you like to take the... Shall I start? Start what? Start what? Unless it's supposed to be some snow offensive. What are you starting? Why can't we talk to the doctor?
You've heard every day and from the president's physician through his detailed accounting of his assessment, his plan.
That can't be the best you got. You can't say that. Is that he leaves a note every day.
I mean, isn't it clear since day one when the note came out they've been asking this?
Well,
and
yes.
They haven't had a better answer this whole time. Like, now they're on, day 5 of this? Mm-hmm. And they still have no better answer than he wrote a note?
Right. So listen to this today while I was doing my show. The doctor's note came out during my show.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the NBC coverage. President Biden's COVID symptoms almost completely resolved, doctor says. Oh, does he say? Biden has been taking Paxlovid, an antiviral, and the chance of severe illness from COVID-19 is less. President Joe Biden's COVID-19 symptoms have almost completely resolved, according to a note from his doctor released Monday. This is so perfect. Although he still has some nasal congestion and hoarseness, his vital signs remain absolutely normal, wrote Dr. Kevin O'Connor. Funny, this the age of modern media. He's writing, carefully writing, dear gathered media. Listen to this, Alice. Here's the news write-up. Biden's been taking Paxlovid, an antiviral drug, yada yada, and plans to continue isolating in the White House residence. Back to the note. You tell me, Alice, if this isn't symptomatic of a very sick administration. Quote, he continues to be very specifically conscientious to protect any of the executive residents, White House, Secret Service, and other staff whose duties require, albeit socially distanced, proximity to him, O'Connor wrote. Wait a second.
Is that part of the doctor's job to notice that?
Unless, of course, this is a composition of the White House communications staff and Ron Klain, all the other people. So now, not only do they not get to talk to the doctor, but the doctor's note is propaganda by the administration.
Right.
Which is effing incredible. It's so deeply incredible how multi-layered this thing is that it's a mess. So no, you can't talk to the president's doctor face-to-face. Absolutely not. He's talking to, although you already are, every day. He talks to you all every day through his note, which is very thorough.
Are they allowed to write him notes back by chance?
Right. No. Right. And so the note just mentions today that he continues to be very specifically conscientious to protect any of the executive residents, White House, Secret Service, and other staff whose duties require... It's funny because the press is asking about how close he's been to different staff members, etc., wearing masks, not wearing masks, etc. And this doctor has just noted, by the way, I can't help notice, this is a little bit out of...
How caring he is.
This is a little out of my lane, but he is really being responsible.
It's funny. Somebody told me a conspiracy theory, and I actually kind of like it. That maybe the video of Biden saying how he's so healthy and definitely still working, and thank goodness for the vaccines, all the stuff could have been recorded months ago because they would have figured at some point he might get COVID and they would want it ready to go to show how hale and hearty he is. So I thought that was kind of an interesting idea too.
I would give this administration a lot of credit if they had done that.
I have been speaking to both his personal physician. I speak to him every single day at length with the president on an ongoing basis.
Again, why?
And
why does Ashish Jha speak to the president's physician every day?
I don't know, because Ashish Jha is in charge of the COVID thing, the national COVID response.
Right. Doesn't he have other stuff to do? He's not part of Biden's health team.
Right. He's not. And as evidenced by the fact that he hasn't seen Biden.
Or the press team, by the way.
Well, yes, that's another thing.
What is he even doing here? I don't understand. Just find somebody COVID related, please.
So they have made the
why
decision.
is he there? I don't get it.
They have made the determination that there's no effing way that room of reporters can be asking that doctor any questions about Biden. They have made this decision.
Or Biden himself over a press conference.
Well, they've made this decision. Biden himself, I think, is a
Over
different.
over a Zoom call?
Biden himself can happily and willfully lie. His doctor may have issues if he,
Right.
wraps himself in too many. So they're saying there's no effing way that we can do this. But what we'll do instead is send another doctor, me, down to be the surrogate for the other doctor who should be here, even though I can't answer any questions really. But I'll invoke the name of even other doctors like Fauci, just so you know. Fauci's been in touch with the president too.
But like, why? None
I don't
of
know.
these people are like doctors
Right.
who are in charge of it. I don't
We don't
get it.
need just random doctors out of head. We need the one that's checking the president. That is a very telling thing, that they are so freaking scared. Can't have anything.
Well, and the fact that they keep sending him out with Karine Jean-Pierre as though, like, I mean, I don't understand why she can't handle these questions herself. Like, she knows just as much about it as Ashish Jha does.
Well, because you're
Although
right.
she doesn't, but
You're right,
she
but
should.
she's taking a beating. And so he's taking the hit.
How
for
long do you think she lasts, by the way?
Well, they can't
I
whack
can't-
her too quick. She's a historic first. She stays for the duration.
But how can they keep doing that? I mean, this isn't good for historic first
Well, it's
for her to be out there looking
You're right,
this bad
because
all
you got
the time.
Ashish Jha, you're right, doing her job.
Right.
Speaking on behalf of the administration, and not just COVID stuff, what's going on in the building. Well, that's going on in the building.
Not about, like, it would make sense if he were out there about, like, whether or not mask mandates should come back. They shouldn't, but whatever. Or about, like, if BA5 is spreading, or about, the availability of Paxlovid across the country, or if there's, like, a new booster coming out. Like, that's the type of stuff that he's there to answer questions on, right? Like, what is he doing here talking about the president's health? And really, it's just because Karine Jean-Pierre is not capable enough to handle this situation on her own.
Precisely.
The bottom line
Especially if they're not going to give, especially now if they're not going to put the president's actual doctor out. Mm-hmm. I mean,
is the president has had, thankfully, because he is double vaccinated, double boosted, he's had a relatively mild upper respiratory infection. And in
we have questions about relatively, sir. Can we ask the doctor about relatively? No.
that context, we have provided, I think, an extraordinary amount of transparency about his care.
Yes, we've been completely transparent, except you can't talk to the person who you want to talk to at all.
When Trump had COVID, they had like 7 doctors out there
Of course.
who were working with him, not like
Yes.
not like random doctors off the street.
When he got tested,
We talked about Ashish Jha when he was on the plane and he had the temper tantrum last year. That was him, right?
Yep.
A guy who is so willing to throw his reputation away, to lie on behalf of the administration, so willing to do this, that tells you about the mindset of somebody like this. He's throwing it all away. The only thing you're supposed to have for these public health people is trust. And
Right.
they're complete prostitutes.
Well, and I mean, he was lame about being on the plane and his stupid threats and complaining about stuff, but he was consistently, I felt, one of the more reasonable public health insane people, right? Like, I remember at Halloween of last year, he was saying, like, it's fine to go trick-or-treating, and a bunch of libs were mad at him, saying, like, how dare you? There's going to be kids breathing COVID, a bunch of unvaccinated children breathing COVID towards my front door. You can't tell them it's safe to go trick-or-treating. Like, and he, like, stuck up for that. But yeah, so I had thought of him, as like a crazy COVID person, but one of the not that bad ones who was sort of like semi-reasonable. And he's just completely... A few things that bothered me. One was taking seriously and defending that completely debunked study that said that COVID was the leading cause of death for kids, which it absolutely was not. And and then this situation too. Like, those two things to me have just completely undermined his reputation.
And I think that the problem is that he likes the taste of being in the West Wing.
Oh yeah.
And so he wants to trade. He wants to be a star.
tested positive, how he's done each day, the evolving nature of his symptoms. Is his runny nose a little worse, a little bit better? Like, we've been very, very open and transparent with all of that data. And what I'm able to do is obviously provide that broader context of how to think about the president's condition in the context of the broader COVID response that we have.
Yeah, but you're able to provide that, but nobody's asking about that. They're
How
asking
does
about
this
the
fit
other
into
stuff.
the broader big picture of COVID?
Right. They're asking for somebody who's been around the president. Now, if it's problematic that the press get to talk to the actual physician around the president because it's not going to gel with what he's saying, well, then that's an issue.
Right. But it's inconceivable. It's crazy that this White House is this bad at this, but you know, if Biden does just have mild illness, then the fact that they're not sending the doctor out is just malpractice. Like, what possible reason could there be that the doctor can't take an hour of his day and go talk to the media? Like, if it's that easy, if the illness is mild, if they're the most transparent administration in the history of planet Earth, then, like, what could possibly go wrong with just sending the doctor out there to the media, who's essentially friendly?
Mm-hmm. Well, and they could also have Karine there just in case somebody starts to, drift into the world of has the president lost his mind kind of stuff. She could jump in and say, hey, we're going to keep focused, etc. But the idea that they're so afraid to have him even in the same room, they can't, tells you that either he doesn't want to go into the room because he doesn't want to have to lie to these people, or they know that, he only has explosive stuff to say.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you would think, I assume, that the president has not just one doctor, but like a care team of whom the main doctor is just one person. Like, if he absolutely can't go out and talk, if all they have to say is to be honest about how the president's doing, then like, why there must be somebody who's involved in the president's actual care who can do this. Like, why is it up to Karine and Dr. Jha to like answer to the press on this? I'm just left with the impression that nobody's home in the White House, frankly.
But the president's physician, I think, has been very, his words have been very clear, and then you've heard from him through his letters every single day.
It's freaking incredible. His letters. We need you to write another letter.
Forgive me. There's a history here in this room of president's physicians standing here to take questions, and in part it's because some of your colleagues in the medical profession do have questions, and they've asked us to ask those questions about why the president's doctor ordered him to stop taking Questor and Eliquis. You have done your best to communicate the answer that the president's physician has given, but are you familiar with the reason why the president decided not to send his doctor out to answer those questions specifically?
Yeah, what I will say is, again, if you take a look, step back and ask the question, what's the medical condition that the president has? Yes, he has
That's
COVID.
Not what he asked,
which is,
though.
Right.
He didn't ask what's the medical condition of the president. He asked why isn't the president's doctor out here? But, they just, what question you should be asking is, how is the president? And he's great. Thank you for asking.
For people who are not vaccinated, not boosted, not taking therapeutics. But that is not the president. The president's immunity is up to date. He's getting treated in that context. He's had thankfully, and again, continue monitoring the president and hope that it all continues the way it has gone so far. But he's had, thankfully, a relatively mild respiratory illness. In that context, I think that you've been hearing from the president's physician, you're hearing from me. That is a lot of information, and certainly plenty of.
No. They're hearing from you. They're not hearing from the president's physician.
They're seeing a note he wrote.
Right. Very flowery note about how he's so, considerate of the staff.
Information to understand both the president's condition and the decisions that are being made. I don't know if you want to add anything further.
I mean, look, just a couple of things, as you, Steve.
And this is why she sucks so bad, because she says just a couple of things. So she's going to just reel off a couple of things on the top of her head. Trapper, keeper.
Mentioned some of our medical colleagues. Just want to say a couple of things about some notable healthcare professionals who have validated our treatment approach, who have been on networks here in this room, and also who have been in newspapers of some folks here. For example, Dr. Lena Wen from George Washington University in the Washington Post, she said, "The president's medical team has done all the right things, followed his..."
They're reading testimonials from other doctors around the country.
Right.
About how good the care is.
Yeah, and like not even like doctors that work with people, but like influencer doctors who go on CNN to talk about the pandemic.
Right. If this isn't a campaign to say stop asking questions about him, stop asking about the doctor.
Following his diagnosis, the fact that he contracted the coronavirus doesn't mean that the vaccines don't work. Rather, succeeded because they are keeping him out of the hospital. The United States has had...
But are they keeping him out of the hospital? He's got his doctors. For him, the White House is his hospital. His doctors are in there with him.
So much success with vaccines and treatments that even when the president gets the virus, it's business as usual.
They're really trying to push the business as usual thing, but I mean, that's how this presidency is. This is the influencer communications presidency, right? They seriously think that they can get out of anything if they just message strongly enough, if they just get influential people that people look up to. I'm surprised they don't have Eric Fielding in there too, the nutritionist guy, to explain how well the president's doing. And Fauci. I mean, they have Dr. Jha there. They have all the famous people. We have Leana Wen has weighed in to say how healthy the president is.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN chief medical correspondent. The statistics...
He's a TV star.
Yeah, why not Dr. Oz? Can you get Dr. Oz to weigh in on how President Biden's doing by any chance? Like, I mean, it's just insanity. Dr. Phil, maybe Oprah can tell us how the president's doing. But that's literally how they think. When they're struggling to contain COVID, what do? They call up whoever, Olivia Rodrigo and some TikTok stars, and tell them to tell 18-year-olds to get vaccinated, even though that has nothing to do with the people who are actually dying of COVID. What do they do when the president has COVID? They call in a bunch of CNN people, talking heads, to come tell us how well the president's doing, not the guy who's in the room working with him. It's insane. We advertised the vaccine on Deadliest Catch and NASCAR. They really think that if they can get the right people to say the words, that everyone will believe them. It's so astonishing to me. And look at the way they're messaging the economy stuff too, right? Like Karine Jean-Pierre out
we'll
here
get
saying,
to that too. But...
We will. But and one thing I wanted to talk about yesterday that we didn't get to is the messaging over the last week or so about gas prices. Now that the price of gas has gone down this little bit, the White House is taking a victory lap right now on gas prices, which is astonishing to me. First of all, that they want to take credit for the gas being, I just looked up, the national average is $4.30 something. You want to take credit for the $4.39 gas prices? Be my guest. That's not great. Nobody likes $4 a gallon gas. But also, you just spent the last year telling us that there's no way you can control gas prices. There's nothing you can do. It's completely out of your hands. It's Putin's price hike. So I don't know why you're taking credit now, because you're telling us that you have no influence over the gas prices at all. But listen to these posts they made on Facebook the other day, right, about the gas prices. This is July 23. With gas prices falling across the country for 39 straight days, President Joe Biden is focused on cutting costs for families and transitioning from a historic economic recovery to steady and stable growth that finally works for working people. And then yesterday, just a day later, after 5 straight weeks of declining prices at the pump, the current drop in gas prices remains one of the fastest declines in over a decade. The Biden-Harris administration's plan to lower costs for families is getting Americans some much-needed relief. And then today, too, he tweets, a little infographic, which, this more than anything, what happened?
What?
Why? I can't hear anything.
Okay, I'm just trying to adjust mine.
Okay, well, I can't hear if I'm on now anymore.
Okay, you can't hear now. How about this?
Okay, and I don't hear me, but that's okay.
Okay, how about now?
I thought my mic was off. Okay.
Can you hear you now?
I can hear me now.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
You can keep talking. I'm just doing
Well,
it for me.
I'm wondering what's going on over there.
Okay.
But so then today the president tweets, "For American families looking for a little more breathing room, these savings matter." And it's a little infographic that says, at current prices, the average driver will spend $35 less per month for one peson, which I assume is meant to be person, but they can't spell check their infographics. Or, so it's $35 less a month for one person. Do you want to guess how many dollars less it is for two people?
Is it around 70?
It's $70 less per month
that
for
is
two
for
people.
two persons.
Wow.
That's great.
Wow, that much more than if they would if gas prices stayed at their peak. How about if they stayed
There's
where they were during the Trump
A
administration?
lot of peasants saving a lot of money.
Are very much on his side because of his vaccines and the Paxlovid medication. It's a different time.
She's still trying to act like she's reading this off the top of her head right here. Well, she's acting it out. She'll look, she's down at the Trapper Keeper. Then she's saying, and it's a different time. Then right back down to it.
When President Trump got COVID, there was no vaccine at that point.
So it's a different time is the theme of why we can't talk to the doctor.
This is an example of how effective the vaccines are, just if you compare those two situations. And the reason why I read those two is because we have seen from his doctor that he's had very mild symptoms, that right now he's almost completely resolved, and he has been able to do the work.
You can't say we have seen from his doctor because we haven't seen from his doctor. Transparency is you letting us see his doctor.
I know. But things are going so well, you just can't talk to the doctor. That's
Sanjay
how well.
Gupta is very impressed with our operation here. Totally unsolicited.
Of the American people. And so if you go back to on Thursday, when we learned he was positive, we put out a statement. I put out a statement. Then we had a letter from the doctor, and then we kept our commitment on making sure you heard from the doctor himself. Look, we are in a different place. This is not 21, 22 months ago. This is not even a year and a half ago.
We're in a place where you absolutely cannot talk to his doctor. That's the place we're in.
Yeah, but I mean, like the media was trying to point out to her, it's not just when Trump got COVID that people were allowed to talk to doctors. It's anytime there's any health issue with the president, they let the media talk to the doctor.
Of course. And every time that happens, they send the doctor out and he tells you that the person's going to be okay and how well the person's doing.
But this president is doing so well,
Yes.
is so healthy that the doctor's not available.
And so we've been here almost every day since, not every day since, every work day since, for about an hour, fielding your questions, taking your questions. Your colleagues were able, one of your colleagues right there, was able to ask the president a question and he answered it directly. That event that he did lasted about an hour. So you've had eyes on him, you've asked questions, you've heard from us, and we're going to continue to give that information as well.
So they did talk to the president over like a Zoom call then?
Somebody asked a question.
Okay.
It was an event. The president was out. Zoom event.
Remotely.
Yeah, for chips or whatever.
Oh, right.
But the fact that they've spent, because she's got the Trapper Keeper with all those testimonials from all the famous doctors around the country, the Trapper Keeper saying it's a different time now, et cetera, this long, lengthy, et cetera. The fact that they put this much energy, which must have taken hours, to come up with a huge, comprehensive reason why it's perfectly normal that you don't get to speak to his doctor no matter what, instead of putting that much energy in prepping the doctor.
Right.
And putting this fire out.
It would be so much easier just to do that.
Unless they know. So they're either incompetent or they're aware of
that there's a problem.
But
they're convinced that if they say the right words, the problem goes away. Just like they're convinced that if they tell you you're feeling so much relief from gas prices, that people will stop being upset about the gas prices. Look at all the relief you're feeling. Things are going really well at the pump. Gas is much cheaper now. President Biden did that for you. You love that. You've saved $35. And if there's two of you, you saved $70. Wow, that's amazing. You must feel great you saved so much money. Just like last year, they told you you saved 16 cents on your 4th of July cookout. Pay no attention to the rising prices at the grocery store. There's no inflation. It's going to be transitory. You're saving 16 whole cents. Look at that. Lucky you. What recession? There's not a recession. A recession? No, it's not that silly old definition with the 2 consecutive quarters. What's that dry, boring technical definition?
We're going to get to that too, but before we quite get to that, this is Portnoy takes one last jab, really.
There's one last thing, and that's it for me. Did you foresee a circumstance, Karine, where the person who treats the commander-in-chief of the armed forces will never or will ever come to this podium?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we're in a different place with COVID, right? We are able to do the business. He's able to do the business of the American people, and not just him. Other Americans as well, because there are vaccines that are free, because there are boosters that are free, because there's Paxlovid, which is an antiviral medication that has helped him really take to the treatment well, really recover.
This is insanely detached from reality. And I know that she has nothing else to say, but okay, I won't answer his question about when we'll ever be able to see the doctor, but I'll just talk about all the great work we've done. This is no good. That guy is going back to his CBS newsroom, and they're going to say, all right, what did you ask him, and what were the takeaways? Well, now we know what it is.
See a circumstance, Karine, where the person who treats the commander-in-chief of the armed forces will never or will ever come to this podium?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we're in a different place with COVID, right? We are.
No, Steve, he'll be here next week, maybe. We think that that'll be a time when it might be better for him to come around. A couple days we'll have him. No, there's no... She's essentially saying yes. I
didn't say never. I just can't imagine the circumstance where you would ever need to talk to him.
Right.
Because he can always send you a little letter.
Are able to do the business. He's able to do the business of the American people, and not just him. Other Americans as well, because there are vaccines that are free, because there are boosters that are free, because there's Paxlovid, which is an antiviral medication that has helped him.
Are the vaccines?
Is this a Pfizer ad?
Are the vaccines free? Karine, was that the question? Are the boosters free?
Really take to the treatment well, really recover very well. You saw him again for your very own eyes. You saw him give a speech at Noble that we just played for all of you, which is why we were a little bit behind in starting this, and also during his CHIPS event. And so that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we are just in a different time with COVID.
Whoo! Is there any?
You would think that everything being going so well would give the doctor more time to come talk to the press, right? Wouldn't you?
Is he dead?
I don't know. It's so crazy to me, though, this whole thing. Like, everything's going so well, and vaccines are free. We have Paxlovid. Everything is great. But can we just talk to the president's doctor? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, think what the president has done for you. Isn't it great? Like, what planet are we on? And is she hearing the same questions that we're hearing, or is she hearing something else? Yeah, and even like, can we talk to the president's doctor? You saw the president with your own eyes. You saw him. You asked him a question, and he answered. Like, why are you being so adamant about that? Like, nothing raises my suspicions more about if the president is actually fine when they're like, you saw him. He looked perfectly healthy. He was able to answer the question, and he was holding up a newspaper with today's date in case you had any doubts. Like,
maybe you didn't watch Sanjay Gupta today.
Next week's a very big week for the economy. So I read the CEA blog. Is the White House trying to change the common definition of a recession because next Thursday the GDP numbers coming out are going to show that we've been in a recession?
So let me say this, the strength of our labor market along with the other economic factors is what we generally see in a recession, or even what is not what we generally see in a recession or even a pre-recession, because we're seeing the strength of the economy and the labor market. So that's really important to note there, because those are...
God, stop coaching the press onto what to concentrate on for copy. So it's really important to lead with that, I would say. Lead with that. Ugh.
Yeah, unemployment's really low. Yeah, we know unemployment's really low. We've seen the help wanted signs at every restaurant. We've seen the places closing because they can't get staff. We know that unemployment's low. That's part of what's driving the economy into a bad place right now, and part of what's driving inflation and the whole thing. And people have been hurting financially now with the inflation and the tightness of the labor market for quite a while. And the White House has leaned on saying, but it's just because the economy is growing really fast and things are going so well. So you can't then turn around when the economy stops growing and say, oh, but that's fine because everything else is going so well. They've been leaning on the fact that the GDP was still growing as what made it okay that there was so much inflation and the job market was such a mess and all this stuff, right? And now that's gone too. So even like the holistic picture of what a recession really is. Well, if a recession is when I am having trouble affording my groceries, then it's already here. And I think a lot of people can tell that the economy's not in a good place right now just by their own bills and how things are going. Like everybody can feel it. And so they've been sitting around saying we're not technically in a recession. Well, now we're technically going to be in a recession pretty soon here. And they're going to sit here and say, no, it's actually not. Things are actually going too well.
And what is exactly the White House's definition of a recession?
Again, I'm not going to define it from here. I'm just going to leave it to the NBER as we have stated of how they define recession.
You won't declare one until they have declared it one.
I'm just saying that we're just not going to define it. We use the indicators that the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research, have used. We've mentioned that a few times.
And what
But it's just
my big takeaway is college is poison. That's my takeaway from this. All of these people are so effing credentialed. They have such good self-esteems. They are so convinced, confident in their intelligence because of the framed paper they have in their office. She's a dumbass, like any other dumbass out there. I'm sorry, she is. And
she's
so
really not that bright a person. It's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, and Ashish Jha as well. He ain't great either. He's not a really impressive dude. These people suck at this, and the president is a dummy, and has been forever. Forever. He's also somebody that's always told you how smart he is, just like this administration tells you how transparent they are, even though you can't see the doctor of the president who has the plague right now. Can't see him. But I had not even heard of the Choco Taco.
You hadn't heard of a Choco Taco?
No.
Oh, staple of ice cream trucks when I was a kid. Staple of ice cream trucks.
Oh.
You know where I saw Choco Taco recently? They had at a hotel I was at recently, which was kind of a seedy joint. They had a vending machine that sold ice cream.
Wait, you were at a hotel, at a seedy hotel without me?
It was for the Republican convention.
Uh-huh.
And there was a vending machine that sold ice cream treats, and one of them was the Choco Taco. And I was like, look, there it still is, the Choco Taco. Being discontinued. Can you imagine? Can't believe that. Can't believe that. So, okay.
No, go ahead. What else you got?
Oh, I was going to talk about another woke institution starting to have an uprising, which is, I'm sure you've heard of the Trevor Project.
No, I don't know it.
So a lot of people that I know, like when they're talking about how proud they are of their non-binary kid for being so brave and coming out, will ask for like donations to the Trevor Project, which is, it's like a suicide prevention group for LGBTQ whatever plus people. So they got a new CEO in 2017 whose background was at McKinsey. And one of the things McKinsey did was work with Purdue Pharma and advise them during their whole crisis of the fact that they were pushing opioids on people when they knew they were addictive and a problem for years and years. And McKinsey was advising them on how to position themselves to look better and push more opioid sales.
Sure.
And this CEO, Amit Paley, I guess, he was one of the key people on the Purdue account who was helping them craft their messaging for pushing opioids. And now the little woke people at the Trevor Project are all upset and feel he should resign because it's come out in all these documents that have been released as a part of this like Purdue settlement that he was a big part of pushing the opioid crisis. So the Huffington Post released all these documents in a big article, and Teen Vogue just did a big article. They've been interviewing a bunch of people who work at the Trevor Project who feel that he should resign from the position because he's so problematic now.
Ooh, so what's your take?
So I think this is interesting because, I didn't check to be sure, but I'm sure McKinsey had a rainbow logo during Pride Month and every other thing. And I'm sure that this guy, who's a McKinsey guy and a TED Talk kind of person, who's like a CEO guy, that he, thinks that he cares a lot about LGBT people and whatever. And that it's interesting to me how none of that like protects you. These woke employees are still going to come after you and try and oust you. And I don't have a lot of love lost for people who tried to push opioids during the Purdue Pharma stuff.
That said, if you're hiring McKinsey, you're hiring sharks to craft your imaging.
But it's like Pete Buttigieg too. Like, what do you think McKinsey's doing? Like, do you think there's some they're essentially a competitor with Bain Capital. Like they're like another big finance bro sharky organization, right? Like that's what they do. Speaking of sharks, shark off Plum Island today.
I saw that. I'm all for it.
But anyway, so they're pushing all this stuff saying that it's not a big deal and he just had a minor role dealing with it and he was very junior and it's not a big deal. But he was helping them push opioids all the way up to 2016, which is like people knew that opioids were bad in 2016.
Yeah, but people still take opioids from
doctors.
doctors.
Yeah, but
it's somebody who we both know just had a procedure done and was given fentanyl in the hospital.
Right. So, but he specifically, it was the summer of 2016, and Amit Paley, a rising associate partner, this is from the HuffPost article, at global consulting firm McKinsey, saw an opportunity. He had worked closely with Purdue before and seemed eager to do so again. So he scrambled to come up with a list of examples of how companies selling dangerous products had reduced risk to avoid liability and salvage their reputations. He, went into all this stuff. He said they were grappling with the fallout of the opioid crisis. So now they're upset because they say that opioid addiction increases LGBT risk of suicide by 3 times. So they feel that he's not the right person to lead their anti-LGBT suicide organization. And he's saying he had no idea. He put out a statement saying, had I known in 2016 what we know now about opioids, like, do we know something different about opioids now than we did in 2016?
Well, the OxyContin stuff happened around 2000, right?
Right. I mean, that's when I remember it was when I was in high school, in 2001, 2002 was when I first started hearing about OxyContin. So one of the things is that, he was telling them we have to save OxyContin as a drug. That was part of his strategy that he told them. But one employee said the mood inside the Trevor Project is grim. Some people feel that by advising a manufacturer of addictive drugs that contributed to overdose and suicide, Paley has blood on his hands, adding, how does he sleep at night? The Trevor Project's mission is
right?
founded in suicide prevention and crisis intervention for LGBTQ young people. But to some employees, Paley's former work for McKinsey seemed entirely antithetical to that mission. In response to a colleague who asked if Purdue was trying to improve the impressions of opioids or address risk, Paley replied, both. The first thing you learn in suicide prevention is removing the means, and he was out there pushing the means, one Trevor Project staffer told Teen Vogue. He worked to put more of these dangerous medications in parents' medicine cabinets for teens and children to have access to. So, anyway, I just think it's funny. So they all want him to resign, all the people that work there. So, and I assume there's going to be all kinds of finger pointing and stuff now. But yeah, who do they think runs big companies and big organizations? It's people like that.
Well, of course.
And
it's people who are effective at running organizations. That's who you get. And a lot of them prove themselves, street fighting for accounts when they were juniors and were killers and sharks and did a good job. And I'm sure that he probably repped the opioid people and he probably repped recovery companies too. He was Don Draper essentially.
Right. I mean, but so there's that side of it. Like, who do these little activists think that CEOs and stuff are? And then on the other side, who do these CEOs think they're hiring in these companies? These are not people who are going to go with the flow in the organization and just let you do the work. So now a bunch of them are considering doing some kind of like work action. I'm
all for it. I'm all for it.
But then some of them are worried that maybe that will hurt their mission of stopping LGBTQ suicides if they strike against going to work at the suicide place. So they're not sure like what to do, but that it's just like this problem that we see writ large in all these progressive organizations is that the activists come to work there and they cause problems in the organization. They don't want to run an efficient organization that does stuff.
Tear down the Trevor Project. Tear down McKinsey. I'm all for it. I'm for it. I'm now I'm a chaos agent.
They deserve each other.
Alice, we'll take just two quick. We've got a smattering of them, but we'll take just a couple.
So brewing. It's between Shattuck and Merrimack. A line has been drawn.
Merrimack.
You must pick a side for the fate of this noble country.
Correct. You will pick the Shattuck side on this side of the river, not that miscreant up there.
Hi, Steve from Alton, New Hampshire. I'm actually up at my Northern Command Center this weekend.
I
warned
Alton,
you
New Hampshire,
about the new Old Oak. I haven't even finished listening to the podcast, but I heard your pre-story about the new Old Oak. I said weeks ago, proceed at your own risk. I've owned a home in Merrimack, Mass. for 16 years, and I've been there once. Okay? Don't say you weren't warned.
He didn't believe you, like usual, Steve. I'm sorry.
I didn't. Well,
don't pull on the camera, please.
Well, but also I figured it was just a dive bar, and Steve comes from money. He's one of these people who wears the Nantucket pants.
Yeah, Tom has low
pants.
standards.
Steve has a whale belt, one of those, in moccasins, and hangs out on a sloop. My moles tell me he's been on.
Actually, if he's in Alton, New Hampshire, that's on Winnipesaukee. That's very nice.
Of course, yes. Obviously, because that's exactly one battery charge for his top of the line Tesla. I think it was three of us, and it gave us a dispirited feeling from the outside when we were right next to it. And the guy was using the outdoor bank machine, who already seemed to be working on his own issues. And there was only two cars in the parking lot. We said, you know what? No. But we went over to Fair Amesbury, and things were picked up from there, I must say.
I thought you said you were going to take two Chat calls.
There was two.
Oh, once. I forgot one. Sorry. They both related to Merrimack, so I rolled them into one. Okay. Leave a Chat message, burnbarrelpodcast.com. You can also find all the places to listen there. Find us on Twitter at burnbarrelpod, facebook.com/burnbarrelpodcast, and burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com.